When banks failed overnight during the Great Depression, trust in institutions collapsed faster than people could react. Families learned quickly that survival was not just about food and work, but about protecting what little value they still had. Cash, jewelry, deeds, tools, and even family heirlooms became lifelines. What followed was a quiet, practical education in concealment, discretion, and long-term thinking. These lessons weren't written down in manuals. They were learned the hard way, inside ordinary homes. Lesson 1 is that valuables were hidden in places no one considered valuable. Families stopped using obvious containers like lockboxes and drawers. Instead, money was sewn into clothing hems, slipped inside mattress ticking, or tucked into flour sacks. The idea was simple. Thieves and desperate visitors searched for valuables where valuables were expected to be. Today, the same principle applies. Storing important items inside mundane household objects that appear worthless remains one of the most effective concealment strategies. Lesson 2 is that walls, floors, and ceilings became quiet safes. During the Great Depression, homes were modified subtly. Loose floorboards concealed envelopes of cash. Hollow walls hid tin boxes behind patched plaster. Ceiling spaces above closets became storage for documents and jewelry. These were not elaborate constructions, just careful use of existing gaps. In modern homes, this lesson translates to understanding your structure. Utility voids, unused duct spaces, and removable trim can serve similar roles without advertising their purpose. Lesson 3 is that valuables were spread out, never kept in one place. Families understood that if one hiding spot was discovered, everything would be lost. Cash might be divided among several locations with jewelry stored separately and documents hidden elsewhere. This reduced catastrophic loss. Today, this principle applies equally to physical valuables and backups. Never rely on a single location, even if it seems secure. All right, folks, lesson number 4 here is that concealment really relied on routine behavior. Back during the Great Depression, households would hide their valuables in places tied to their daily tasks. You'd find a jar tucked behind cleaning supplies, money wrapped in wax paper inside a pantry container, or even items buried beneath coal bins. These kind of locations just blended right into normal life. For us today, it's important to store our valuables where our regular habits provide natural cover, not in places that require special trips or unusual actions that might attract attention. Now, Lesson 5 tells us that visibility was the real enemy of security. Families back then avoided anything that might suggest they had wealth. Jewelry was rarely worn, and valuable items were intentionally made to appear worn, outdated, or even broken. A plain exterior was the best way to discourage curiosity. And today, this lesson is more important than ever. Advertising your preparedness, collections, or assets just invites attention. True security, my friends, often looks like having nothing worth taking. Moving on to Lesson 6, children were taught secrecy early and clearly. Even the young ones were instructed never to speak about hidden money or valuables. Silence was treated as a form of protection. Now, this wasn't paranoia, it was good old realism. In our modern households, this lesson applies to conversations, social media, and even casual remarks. Security tends to fail most often through loose talk, not forced entry. Lesson 7 is that burial was used sparingly and carefully. Some families buried valuables in yards, gardens, or under outbuildings, but only when absolutely necessary. Items were wrapped to resist moisture and marked using memory, not obvious signs. Many families lost buried items forever because they forgot exact locations. The lesson here is restraint. If using outdoor concealment today, precision and documentation are essential, and over-reliance is dangerous. Lesson 8 is that decoys were sometimes intentional. Some households kept small amounts of cash or inexpensive jewelry in obvious places. If discovered, it satisfied a search without revealing deeper concealment. This tactic acknowledged human behavior under pressure. In modern terms, this could mean keeping a small visible stash separate from true reserves, creating a psychological endpoint for intrusion without total loss. Lesson 9 is that trusted neighbors were part of the security strategy. In tightly knit communities, families occasionally entrusted valuables to relatives or neighbors, rotating storage during high-risk periods. This wasn't blind trust, but, reciprocal necessity. Applied today, this translates to carefully chosen off-site storage with folks who share aligned values and understand discretion, not just convenience-based trust. Lesson 10 is that concealment was temporary, but awareness was permanent. Families understood that hiding valuables wasn't a one-time act. Locations were changed, checked, and adapted as conditions shifted. Security was a living process. In modern survival planning, this lesson is, critical. Regular reassessment of storage methods keeps them effective as environments, risks, and personal circumstances change. What the Great Depression teaches us is not clever tricks, but disciplined thinking. These families weren't preparing for fantasy scenarios. They were responding to real economic collapse, social strain, and uncertainty. Their methods worked because they were simple, quiet, and rooted in human behavior rather than technology. If you value serious history and practical survival knowledge drawn from real events, subscribe to Battlefield of Survival, share this guide with others who take preparedness seriously, and keep these lessons alive. History only stays useful if we apply it.